Good morning. Welcome to Saturday Morning Coffee. My name is Lance McKinnon. I'm here with my co-host, Tiffany Linderman. Good morning, Tiffany. How are you today?
Hey, Lance, I'm doing really well. Thank you. How are you?
I am absolutely doing great today. How's everything on your end?
It's great. I'm excited. We have a very special guest today, Quincy Faison, and he is a father, he is an entrepreneur, and in his free time, which doesn't exist, he's also a coach. So good morning, Quincy. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good morning, Quincy.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us on Saturday Morning Coffee. Like I said, concept of it is people who are making a big difference in life. And you are on from, I can't explain it, from A to Z, from coaching to owning multiple businesses. Just kind of tell us a little bit of how you got started, what you can add to people, some nuggets to help them improve in life and coaching and the financial world.
Yeah. Well, first of all, before you guys start recording, you mentioned something about getting up and having coffee in the morning, and it's kind of near and dear to my heart. When my grandfather was alive, he would always wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we would go over to Waffle House, and I would just sit with him while he had his coffee. And he never met a man he didn't like, right? And so I think that was a spark for me in business and in coaching. Is I never met a man I didn't like. Now, after I met them, maybe I didn't like them, but initially, I've never met a person I didn't like, and that allows you to connect with people, right? And everything we do is everything's a connection. And so when you asked me to come on to the show, I was kind of thinking, how do I want to present myself, or how do I want to talk about giving back and what I've done in the past. And I kind of broke it out into 3 different phases, right? One phase is the coaching and dealing with the youth. One phase is mentoring and dealing with other entrepreneurs. And then the other phase is people giving back to me, right? My mentors. And I think it's really important that to have a self-fulfilling life, that you have those 3 elements of it. And so I start with the coaching, right? And giving back to the youth, right? A lot of times people talk about coaches are one of the most important people that you experience in your life. And for me, same thing, right? So when I got married, my old wrestling coach was at my wedding, right? I still talk to another one of my wrestling coaches through social media. And so those are the memories that you have in your head when you're doing things that you don't want to do, right? And you start thinking about practices and the grind and all that kind of stuff. And so from a youth perspective, one of the things that we always try to deliver to our players and our students is really the aspect of discipline, right? So you think about, well, when you get yelled at on the field, right? These kids become real good kids, right? They sit in class, they don't mess around, they don't get in trouble. But that's not necessarily how I define discipline, right? Discipline is really about doing things right all the time, right? Being coachable. And what is being coachable? It means that you have the discipline to listen, right? Being able to be a leader, which means you have the discipline to lead. And so we try to instill discipline into the students or into the players so they can become good entrepreneurs, good workers, good employees, good employers, et cetera, right? And then as they move from the evolution of being a youth to being an adult, you think about our lives, right? So if you want to be wealthy, you got to have the discipline for money management, right? If you want to be healthy, you have to have the discipline to eat and exercise. If you want to be good in your relationships, you got to have the discipline to communicate. If you want to have a good mindset, right, you got to have the discipline to have good thoughts. So discipline really bleeds throughout that whole concept of what we're trying to teach, right? It's not just, oh, these guys are well behaved because they were coached. Well, no, we're trying to instill those disciplines in life so that when they get to school, when they get to college, they have the discipline to study. They have the discipline to know when to party. They have the discipline to do all these things that will ultimately make these guys successful. And so we've taken that whole concept of being disciplined in the youth, and we've kind of done it from a entrepreneur standpoint. We created a podcast called The Entrepreneur's World. And essentially what it is it's a mentorship program to other entrepreneurs. because as you guys know, when you really don't have a boss and your only boss is the customer, sometimes you can get lost, right? Because you don't have anyone that's telling you what to do. You don't have anyone saying, hey, you got to go make this call or that call. And you need to have proper discipline to be a good entrepreneur. And sometimes you got to have the right person in the canoe with you. And sometimes that person in the canoe is a mentor that's kind of giving you advice and guiding you and understand some of the trials and tribulations that you go through. And then for me, my discipline is I've got a mentor as well, right? I've got actually two mentors that I listen to and I talk to on a weekly basis to understand, hey, am I doing wrong, or what can I be doing better, right? Because they're to a place where I'm not and that I want to get to. And so you listen to the smart people. And so I think it's important for everybody to have a mentor. It can be in business, it can be in life, it can be in relationships, but just other people that have different life experiences than you do that can help shape what you do.
Yeah, and Quincy, you brought up a very good point, is because, through my life, I've always had a mentor in different stages, and I kind of go back to, as you brought up, the coaching. A coach has the capability to make an impact on more kids' lives than most people do throughout their whole lives. I can go back and think about all of my coaches who have been there for me that I'm still in contact with, who installed in me, I'm going to teach you to be a man, but you also get to play football. And, and that was like one of the biggest important lessons. And that was like my first mentor, Coach Miner. And I'll never forget him, is that, and still to this day, is like, I'm going to teach you to be a man, but you're going to get to play football. And if you're not going to be a man, you're not going to play football. And I think it's really important. And like you had mentioned, all phases of your life, you should have a mentor, because if you want to grow, as they say in the old scripture, iron sharpens iron. Yep. And you want to attach yourself to that next level to be able to do the things that you want to do. And so that was a very interesting point, and I just wanted to comment on that.
And the cool thing is with,
sorry.
Go ahead, sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you too, have you always been very disciplined and working with mentors, or was there a point in your life where that changed and evolved?
I won't say that I've been the discipline like I am now, right? I think that was an evolution. It was something that I learned over time, and wasn't that I just came back. But I was an athlete from the time I was 6, right? So that was some of the things that were instilled in me that I had no idea they were being instilled in me, right? So some people can look at me like, wow, he's really disciplined. And then someone else can look at me, it's like, wow, he's all over the board, right? So that foundation came from my youth and the coaches that I experienced and the discipline they instill. And I had no idea that they were instilling discipline. I was just being yelled at. I was being taught. I was being told what to do, right? But those things just built that foundation. And that's what we try to do with the kids that we coach as well.
And you brought up a good question, and well, not a good question, but you made a great statement there. And I want to just kind of bring it up too, is like being a coach and you want the individual, the youth, to be successful. And we all know that it's extremely competitive out there. And I always want to tell parents, don't take this the wrong way or anything else like that. But it's not a patty cake sport, lacrosse, football, or anything else like that. So sometimes while you're coaching, you actually have to get a little bit louder to get a little bit more motivation. And it's not that you're trying to demean the child or anything, but you know the potential that they have in them, and you're just trying to unlock it. And so sometimes people take that as like, well, oh, you're yelling and screaming at my child for no reason. But no, but you see something in him because you're looking at it from outside the box of knowing that potential that particular child has. And so I really wanted to get that in there to a lot of the parents, because as a coach, you know what's going on. You know what it takes and to push your child to the next level. As parents, we kind of like, we hold back, and but I'm a parent coach as well too, so you got to know when to push and when to not
I'm going to pull back.
and when to and just be a parent. So it's so I just want to get that out there, all the parents, is that like some of these coaches, there are some that take it to the extreme who want to win the trophy. But I think ultimately at the end of the day is that you want to grow a man.
Yeah, you make a real good point in that when you start talking about the yelling or the raising of your voice a little louder than you might be. And I tell parents, and I tell everybody that will listen, is when the coach stops yelling at your son, that's when you should be afraid, because he's checked out, he doesn't care, he's moved on, right? When the coach is yelling at your son, it's because he sees that potential. He sees more than what he's given. So that's why he's yelling at him. And the other thing, it's also it's a mind game as well, because you're not only yelling at that one player, you also want to deliver that message to 40 other players that's listening to what's going on, right? And so that's why sometimes you have to elevate your voice, because not only do you want him to understand what's going on or why he messed up, you want everyone else to understand that, hey, don't mess up if I've taught you something, right? And that's part of that discipline of being able to getting your butt chewed out, being able to just suck it up, yes, coach, and go do it right the next time, right? And that's in my opinion, I'm from the old school, man. I'm not from this new school where, you got to talk to little Johnny nice. And no, I'm going to get in his butt because I care about him, right? And that's the same kid whose parents were upset because they were being yelled at, or even the kid that didn't see the field. That's the same kid that when he's a freshman in college and he's a sophomore in college and he comes back, the first person he's going to see is that coach that got in his butt. He's not going to see the English teacher that was nice to him and gave him good grades. He's going to see that guy that was in the trenches with him, that got in his butt and didn't care. And I think, and this could be controversial, but I think that everybody needs to allow their kids to be disciplined by someone other than them. And that's this is something that I believe wholeheartedly. It makes them well-rounded. It makes them respectable people, right? If you have a scenario where nobody can yell at my kid except me, they become uncoachable. They become unemployable. They become all the things that you don't want because they're leaning on you and they only have respect for you. They need to have respect for authority, and that's in coaching, that's in school, that's in work life, that's in entrepreneurship, right? Because if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a boss except the person who's paying your bills, and that's your customer. And so you've got to have respect for your customers. That's why they say customers are never wrong, right? The customer's always right because they're paying your bill, and that's the people you have to respect. So it never stops. Never stops.
Absolutely. And and the one thing it brings up my mind and is I know you're down there in Florida and we're up here in Pennsylvania, so your boys want to go to Duke and North Carolina and all that. Yep. But I think of when Roy Williams just retired, the basketball coach. I forget the young man's name that came out and gave us.
I was crying. Oh yeah.
That left me in tears because he went there as a boy and he left there as a man, and that I'll tell you, go back, look that story up because it will touch you deeply.
Oh yeah, I saw it. I saw it,
and it was absolutely amazing. And so, but like I said, that just goes on to you leave high school, you go into college, you go into the college world. You're not there anymore. There's parties every night. There's things that are outside of your control. So it's good to start teaching them at a very young age to start making those right decisions, because like you said, it leads into, do you want to work at XYZ or do you want to own XYZ?
Right. Yep, that's exactly right. And in our mentorship program with Entrepreneurs World, we teach just that, right? We take someone who has been working for someone, they have all the know-how, and we try to teach them how to go out and acquire or build their own company instead of working for somebody else. Sorry, you're going to say?
I was just going to add, so I love the concept around the discipline and the coaching because where my world is, I work in a lot of management, and I hate to say the word management because I think ultimately it's the word more leadership and helping to inspire others to be successful. And so when I'm working with people, I've seen very much where people aren't open to feedback, as you mentioned earlier. You need to be coachable in order to be successful. And if you have a leader that's willing to coach you and train you, it's just like your example on the field. You want to do that because you want to see improvement, see that person succeed. And when people aren't open to that feedback, you ultimately get to a point where you don't continue to do it because it's really falling on deaf ears. So I absolutely love that. And I think that it's so important to have different individuals be able to impact and inspire and coach while you're young. So it's not shell shock when you get into the real world and you're trying to work, whether it's having your own business and getting feedback from your customers or hearing from your leaders in whatever company you may end up working with.
Yeah, when you talk about leadership and being able to coach an employee or an associate, right? You think about guys in football that become, early on, I talked about being coachable and also being able to lead when the right time to lead is. And so I just think about my days at IBM, right? When you first get out of college, you're on the very bottom, right? There's a bunch of people on the bottom and you are directly responsible for your own success. Once you get enough success in that particular job role, then you can start kind of climbing that corporate ladder. And so you have some people that say, well, I don't want to go up to management or leadership because I now have to depend on 5 other people. I only want to do my own thing. I can blow my sales number out. When you become a leader, right? If everyone was doing $1 million and you have 5 people, now as a leader, your quota is $5 million or $10 million. And you got to figure out how to get the best out of those 5 people. And there's a lot of people that don't have that leadership quality, or they don't want to go up and work with other people because it's out of their control. But really, is it really out of their control? It's not, right? It's how you can communicate to those 5 people to get them to do what it is that you want them to achieve.
Absolutely right. And that's great. And I know Quincy from, just working with you, knowing you, and just being around you. And I'm a true believer, and I know you are too, is that I lead by example. There's nothing that I will not do that I will have my employees do. And I think that is something that is very valuable, that is sometimes lost. Sometimes people can just sit behind a desk and bark orders. But you know what? If I see something on the floor, I'm going to be the first one out there picking it up off the floor, because if they see me doing it, they're going to do it. If I'm coming in early, they're going to punch in early. It brings out, I guess, like you said, we're old school. So we learned that, to be competitive, open up doors, to do your best, to challenge yourself. I think Tim Tebow just said it the other day. I was listening to a message from him about endurance. When your body is tired and you're just mentally broke down and you have to get to that next level, he talked about endurance, and you have to be able to mentally push yourself to get to that next level. And you can't quit. You can't quit on yourself or your team. I know for myself, I do a lot of extra reading on personalities and, just philosophy. Phil Jackson was probably one of the greatest persons out there as a coach who could get the best out of players based off of philosophy of knowing how to manage people and how to get them past that pain of, like, say, of status quo. Because some people would just say, hey, I'm good here. I'll make my XYZ and I'll ride this out for 30 years, but you're really not meeting your full potential. And that sometimes was just frustrating. And I go back to the coaching, when you're kind of not disciplining, but you're in a child's face, that child is not reaching their full potential. you know your employee is not reaching their full potential. They're only doing it 80%, and one of the things that I've always said here in our home is that, if you got a test, what I expect you to do 100%. If you don't do well on that test, but you tried 100%, I will respect that. But if you don't do well on that test and you didn't do 100%, well, we have an issue here. So, it's very important that you're always giving 100%.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I learned, I think I was a junior in high school. I was at a J. Robinson intensive wrestling camp in Minnesota. And at night, we used to have kind of meditation where we would close our eyes and he'll talk to us. And one of the things he instilled is your mind will tell your body it can't go before your body gives out. Right? And so it was all about building that mental strength. When you think you hit a wall physically, you can tell your mind that you still have more to go and you can get through it. Right? And that's just not the physical, right? It's also going back to discipline, like little things like this, getting up 2 hours early to get some work done, right? So instead of getting up at 7 o'clock, get up at 5 o'clock, get 2 hours of stuff done. I don't care if it's work, if it's exercise, what have you. Those 2 hours a day that everybody can do, by the way, that's 60 hours in a month. How many hours in a year did you just get back? Right? It's that discipline. And then I want to touch on what you talked about is that, yeah, we grew up with a lot of barking and all that good stuff, and it worked. But in the corporate world, that doesn't work, right? You're dealing with adults. You can't really yell at them and be that boss who just sits behind his desk and says, hey, you go pick up that, or you go do that. I don't know if you ever heard of the terms a servant leader. And that leader is there to serve the people that work for him or that work together. That's when you start drawing the potential out of the people that are working for you, because you're taking some of those things off their plate as their servant to allow them to do things that are going to help the overall team. And I think that's really important in business is, you're not barking orders. You're just, hey, how can I help? Right? How can I help the team? Because I'm no longer the coach. I'm a coach player. I'm Pete Rose. I'm in the game with you, right? I'm in the game with you. I'm a player manager. And I think that's what people respect.
Yes, and especially too, and I want to touch on, and a lot of people might not know your whole story, but you are all over the place. Like we were talking about earlier, you probably only get 3 to 4 hours of sleep. You're working in other countries. You're with your family. You prioritize. You guys have a great time together. How do you do that?
Oh, I hate to keep talking about discipline, but it is discipline, right? I have time carved out for work. I have time carved out for my kids. That's why I still help out at their high school, because that's, those 2 hours a day are 2 hours that I have with my kids, right? When I get up early to deal with China, India, to deal with the UK and Ireland, I get up early to accomplish that. And then I sleep 3 or 4 hours a day, but I also go to bed early, right? I'm not a guy that's going to sit up and hang out till 1 o'clock in the morning watching TV. Typically my eyes start to shut down around 9 o'clock.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm an 8:30, 9 o'clock guy. I'm calling it good.
All the weekends, all my friends, if you talk to anybody on Facebook or social media, right, they always post pictures of me falling asleep. Hey, listen, I can sleep anywhere. I can be out at a restaurant, and when I'm tired, I'm asleep.
Oh my goodness. Hey, you deserve it. Hearing everything that you're doing is incredible. As you talked about servant leadership, just to kind of switch back, I don't know if you guys ever read the book the 360 Leadership, where not only does it talk about leadership and your team, your direct reports, but it's coaching and leading, with your peers. And not only that, it's also coaching and leading your boss. So I absolutely love this book. And if you haven't read it, I would definitely encourage it, especially if you're a new leader going into management or entrepreneurship, just because I think when I first went into it and had to grow myself and work on discipline, and my goodness, like a calendar. My calendar is my Bible. It really directs me where to go. And as you just talked about how you manage your day, I can't even imagine looking at your calendar, Quincy. But anyways, that book, 360 Leadership, it really talks about, you don't only coach your direct reports, but you can teach people that are your peers. And you can also teach and help support and have ideas for your boss to improve, whether it's your company. I mean, obviously your company, if you're in a model like that. But I think it's been so impactful because I realized that my ideas and concepts are important for others to hear. And I also, that servant leadership, I think, goes across all those levels as well. How can I help my peers? How can I help my direct reports? How can I help my boss to be successful? If they're successful, then I'm successful in the end of the day. So really great book. And if you haven't read it, definitely encourage you to.
You call that 360 leadership, was it?
Mhm.
And Tiffany, that's a really good point. And I'm going to bring that up. You always want your employees to possibly move on.
Yeah.
You always,
Up
you
or out.
Yeah, you want to move them up and you move them out. You know that it's like having another child that you just raise them, but you know that you have to move them out. And and I think sometimes in the corporate world, people put a ceiling on some people because they don't want to lose them. I want to lose employees that are going to be going on doing bigger and greater things and know that I had a part in that process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's really huge.
But you know what? It's also about that farm system, right? You can move somebody up when you know that you've got the right processes, teachers, and training to have the next stud that's coming right behind them.
Yes. Right? Yes.
Going back to your 360 book, just hit me that when I was at IBM and you look at the large corporations that do things well, annually they would have a 360 peer review. And so you would have a review not only from your manager, but you would have review from 2 or 3 of your peers. And it's supposed to give you kind of that 360-degree view of how you're performing in different people's eyes, right? So that's important.
Yeah. Can I just say, I actually just went through that in December of last year. And so that experience can be brutal. And I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you've gone through it, but ultimately, because you're getting feedback from everyone. And so it's like you're literally, all the blinders of who you are come off. Everything's out there in the open. And it's really, honestly, a great experience because it allows you to understand not only who you think you are when you're presenting with your teams, but really what are they seeing? And so it gives you that feedback to be more successful for yourself and your teams, your leadership, so that ultimately whatever you're trying to drive and be successful in, you can achieve that. So it's a great experience. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure it was a fun feedback thing for you as well when you went through it.
It was a while ago, but yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, I experienced that while I was at UPS. It's an eye opener, like you said, Tiffany, because you think you're doing something and you're really not. And it's like, wait a minute, okay, I can do this a little bit better. But I think a lot of corporations should really, kind of bring that back and so forth, because it gives you, like you said, that 360 view.
And even the smaller corporations, right? Not just for the large corporations, the people that have 30, 40 employees. Now that's a good practice to do as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, Quincy, you are an extremely busy man, and I know it's Saturday morning, but I know that you're working, and I'm going to kind of just wrap this up. But can you leave us with some a couple good nuggets that our audience can take away from this, about summarize this in a minute for us?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about becoming disciplined in every aspect of your life. Whatever that means to you, it is what it is. But if you have discipline, the theme that trails discipline is success. It's really simple. When you're disciplined, you will see success. right? Just like we talked earlier, when your mind has told your body it can't go anymore, but if you're disciplined to be able to take that very down and block, you move on to the next level. And that's not just physical, it's mental, it's in business, it's in life, it's in relationships, it's in everything you do. Just be disciplined in what you do and you'll be successful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Quincy, I know that you got to get going because I'm sure you got to get this someplace, but I want to thank you for taking your time. Again, I like the similar Saturday morning coffee story. As I, it takes us back. But thank you. And Quincy, keep making a difference in people's lives today and every day. And keep pushing. And we're going to keep following you. And I'm going to watch your boys go to Syracuse and not do.
Well, listen, you guys keep doing what you guys are doing with Saturday Morning Coffee. Great podcast. And I see it taking off.
All right. Thank you very much, Quincy. We greatly appreciate having you.
Cheers.
All right,